Vagrant. Noun. Wandering from place to place without any settled habitation. Wandering. Unsettled. Moving without any certain direction. This is the beginning of the end. The end of the year. The end of my class. The end of my time in Missouri. The end of so many things that I haven't even been made aware of yet. My bank account has run out. My patience has run out. And yet, I am still in St. Robert, Missouri, and I've got to find a way to make this all work. When I started this trip, I was exhausted. Packing and moving always seems to take a toll, even if it is only stuff that can't fit in a Jeep. Spending September through December in one hotel room means that I was just getting settled in time for that to get turned on its head. I packed and checked out of that temporary home, wandering the highway east until I checked into a different hotel that evening for the accountability check in the morning. Rolla held rumors of a late 1800s sawmill to the south, and I felt this could be a perfect opportunity to kill a few hours. The mill is located down towards one of the few remaining puzzle pieces of Mark Twain National Forest for me to visit. It quickly became apparent that the path I chose was going to take far too much time to complete in the half of a day that I'd allotted myself. The path through the old forestry tracks was just technical enough to not only slow progress, but also it was just enough to get me excited for what lay ahead of me over the next 2 weeks. Often I found that time is my biggest obstacle when I'm off-roading. I always seem to run out of time, daylight, and energy far before I get to see everything I want. The water levels are low for this time of year, the lack of yearly precipitation denying the deep water that can make some of these water crossings turn really treacherous really fast. The cliffs guide the creek down gullies and stream beds where trees and earth have otherwise been washed away. Some of the entry and exit points to these water crossings were tight though. Often a creek crossing transitioned to a sharp turn the second your vehicle makes it over the bank on the other side. The jagged rocks eventually gave way though to a paved county road where my 2-hour drive from Ellington back to St. Robert, Missouri began. It was now evening, and darkness was settling in quickly. Because of this and the long drive home, I never did find the mill.
Sorry for the weird camera angle, but I forgot the tripod in the Jeep, and I'm not going back out to get it. I bit off more than I could chew today. That was probably the hardest drive I've done since coming across Canada without functional headlights in the dark. I'm beat. Got like 3 or 4 hours of sleep last night, and then went to go find the mill, and I didn't end up finding it because I found a really cool trail. But that means that I did a lot of driving today. And between the narrow, windy, fast, rough roads with no shoulders and every shadow looking like a deer to my exhaustion and trying to stay awake, and got to the hotel, and then they said, hey, by the way, we're not here, you gotta go 2 doors down. What they meant by 2 doors down was 2 buildings over across the road. Then I almost died because somebody tried turning into where I was at 60 miles an hour. Yeah, it was great. But what that means is what I'm going to do is I'm going to eat my McDonald's, and I'm going to relax for a little bit, and then I'm going to go to sleep. And I'll talk to you guys in the morning. Well, I kind of lied to you guys. I said I would talk to you again in the morning. As you can probably guess, it's not the morning. It is currently 8 before 2, almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I just got to where I want to be, ish. I am getting excited about this though. There is beautiful country out here. I've already marked 3 or 4 spots that I might come back to tomorrow and take pictures. But I did learn an important lesson. If you don't need to go to Branson, don't go to Branson. I thought I was going to be fine. I just go check it out. And there was too many people, despite it being the winter time and the middle, or I guess the beginning of the week, not the middle of the week. And between a little bit of sightseeing, I didn't even get to see any historic buildings, really. And Chick-fil-A and Walmart. It took me 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. I'm here in this part of the Mark Twain National Forest. This particular area is apparently called the Ava Glades. And it's a big natural protection area. And it's very nice. It is very pretty. And I'm excited to be out here. I still am not 100% certain on where I'm going to end up camping. But right now, the main concern is getting this Jeep packed back up in a way that things don't slide around quite so much, because I've got a lot of money and things out here that, you know, if I was in my own spot I wouldn't have, but that I am, so I do, like guitar cabinets. I don't really feel like having come through the windshield, or just getting roughed up unnecessarily against the backs of my seats and everything else in here. But look at that view. So I'm going to get this packed up and I'll get on the road.
So I was able to deal with the nightmare of navigating Branson. It just meant I was running out of time. Again. By the time I was able to get everything situated in the Jeep well enough to go explore off the normal paths, I only had time for like one trail. Enter the Van Camp Trail. It's 1.6 miles, out and back. It's rated as a blue 5 out of 10 on Onyx Off-Road, and started out pretty much how I would expect most things to start in the Mark Twain National Forest. That being said, you end up on the ridgeline pretty quick, and the expansive views were something I haven't been exposed to much, at least not here in Missouri. Ruts, mud, and trees? Sure. Windswept, tree-bare ridges where you can see for miles? Not so much. Even the local A-10 pilots were out enjoying the scenery, though I suspect they also got a view of something else that they probably wish they didn't. The ridges also provided a gentle introduction to some of the rock shells and ledges that the Ozarks are known for. I'm sure I will find some more, though, as I continue. It's been years since I've solo camped. Camping with the group? Sure. But it's been ages since I've been by myself in the woods. I don't have the vague reassurance of a tent even. There's not anyone around at the adjacent areas. I'm not going to pretend it's remote. I can hear the highway in the distance, and if I needed to leave, I'm only about 30 minutes from a town, even if it is a small one. Being out here, by myself, in the dark, without even having any form of personal protections, highlights what my emotions over the last year are, if we were to boil them down to the core. It's raw, and it's panic-inducing if you dwell on it too long. Maybe it's just the anxiety talking. It does run in the family, but I don't have it. I just suck it up and deal with it as I always have. Turning from the comfort of the fires when it hits you. You are small. You are weak. You are insignificant, and as you peer into the darkness, you can feel it staring back at you. You hear every leaf fall. You hear every coyote howl. You hear every branch snap. The void tries to convince you that every sound is some great nightmare come to take you home. Then you make it through the night, just like the logical part of your brain tells you that you will, and somehow you're stronger for it. So sure, the Glade Top Trail, which traverses this portion of Mark Twain National Forest and serves as a connector to several other Forest Service roads, is far busier in the summer on account of its beauty and its accessibility than it is today. The morning brought dense fog. The views across the valleys of Ava Glades are now imperceptible. The overlook at the Caney campground still had the air of majesty as you were to look down the rows of run-down wooden stadium seating centered on a simple, just as weathered, trellis that would do well to function as a photo opportunity or as the centerpiece for a small family event. The obscurity added a sort of cinematic gloominess, suggesting to the mind a purpose more nefarious than it actually is. I actually recorded my morning introduction at this spot. The footage is gone. It's missing. It's as if the specters in the fog denied being recorded, the ghost of some bald knobber, or perhaps one of their victims. I specifically remember double-checking that the camera was recording, yet there's no evidence that this ever existed. This is one of two instances on this trip that key footage has gone missing, and whether for reasons mundane or supernatural, we'll likely never know, though I could probably take a guess. a quiet drive until I reached the first trail of the day, likely on account of it being the week of Christmas and not being deer season anymore. This trail is called Short Hollow. It's a 7.1 mile blue rated, 4 out of 10, and it separates from Glade Top Trail for those who wish to be a little bit more adventurous. Clearance was a bigger issue here on this trail than it was on Van Camp. On a few occasions, I lightly kissed rock ledges both descending towards the beginning of the trail and ascending back out of the hollow on the other side. Having finished Short Hollow, I was left with possibly the most pivotal decision of the entire trip. This portion of Mark Twain National Forest was enjoyable in a different way than the rest of what I had experienced up to this point. The idea of exploring here longer was promising. The knowledge that it is going to be a long time before I'm in this area again, with the opportunity to explore like I am now, added to the need that I felt to keep going. However, Harrison, Arkansas was just an hour and a half away. It's only 10 o'clock in the morning at this point. It was only another hour past that until I could be in the Ozark National Forest. I was one lunch stop and one fuel stop away from an area that other channels have built their content around. An area both highly regarded and overshadowed by other off-road areas, particularly out west. There was a pull to it, feeding everything I felt about Everglades, but somehow more. It was likely going to be just as long until I would experience Ozark National Forest if I didn't do it now. Something in my soul told me that it would be an eye-opening experience. Plus, as long as nothing drastic happened, I could still make it to Harrisonville, Missouri by the start of the Christmas Eve candlelight service the next day. Trailhead's Trail is by far the easiest trail that I drove to this point. It's rated a 5 out of 10, blue trail on Onyx Afro. I was met with largely well-graded Forest Service road with the exception of some erosion control berms and the ever-present Ozark mud that threatens to swallow your tires if you aren't judicious about your rig and your ability. I couldn't ask for any better weather than this. Mid-70s, in the Midwest, in December, there hasn't even been a threat of precipitation. If you would have told me 3 weeks ago that I would be camping and I could use a 3-season bag this time of year, I would have laughed in your face. But here we are. It was foggy for a bit, sure, and maybe a bit overcast, but if I didn't know any better, I would have still thought we were in September.
Sorry you guys had to see me a little bit more country than normal, but all I have is flannel shirts and thermals right now, and it's 75 degrees outside and I was sweating. I wasn't planning on stopping this early today, but I found the most quintessential Ozark National Forest campsite I think I possibly could. I think the guys up the road, there's a couple in a Tacoma up on the other side of the river. They've got a good spot too. I like this one better anyways, but I think they're kind of upset or bothered that I stopped on the other side of the river. But it was getting close to dark, and I don't know when I would come across another spot like this before it was too late. So it's beautiful. Got the fire going. There's still a little bit of daylight. It is 5 o'clock on the dot, and I'm going to take the opportunity, and I got enough firewood to give me something to do. I'm going to read my book, Director at S by Steve Cole, and it's taken me 9 months to get where I am, and I need to get through, and I haven't even touched it in probably 3 months. So I'm going to read my book. I'm going to drink some Red Bull. I'm going to stoke a fire till I put the last stick on, and that's what I'm going to do for the rest of the night.
Out here in the woods, the old adage, "It's always darkest before the dawn," stands true. In the hour before morning blue hour, or black hour I suppose you could call it, the distant, still unrecognizable light of the sunrise overpowers the twinkling of the stars. The light certainly isn't strong enough to see by still, but the stars seemingly vanish. The only indication that light might be coming is a vague grayness that blankets the brightness that not 20 minutes ago you could navigate by in a night like this. This is also when I've noticed that fog seems to set in the most, reducing visibility and adding to the ominous feeling that you're headed deeper into the night rather than coming out of it. It can be strange to witness for your first time. You never really truly recognize how many shades of blue-gray exist until you've experienced it though. The morning of Christmas Eve, I was feeling good. I was feeling confident. I was drinking water straight from the source, so to speak, and the weather still was proving good despite the dense layer of fog. I still had to finish the trail out of the valley, but I had Wolf Ridge Trail in my sights. That'd be one trail in the morning, Fayetteville, Arkansas for lunch, then an easy 3-hour drive to Kansas City. In hindsight, the fog must have been clouding my judgment. It's easy to blame the next events on bad information, or a lack of preparation perhaps, but it's all just excuses. The trail starts off simple, deceptively so. It's rated a 6 out of 10, which is only marginally higher than the trails I ran to this point. I was pretty unsuspecting as the trail continued. turns out that I even ran this trail backwards. By far, this was the easiest way. Not the recommended way, but maybe this is a blessing. Why did I even attempt this? My intuition was pinging. I'm alone. I have no recovery equipment. I'm loaded plenty heavy. There's even a bypass around the mud. I could have gone around it. I had no reason to risk this bit. And I still did it anyways. The fact that I made it through this pit gave me a false sense of security. I can't explain my decisions past this point with any basis except for that. The obstacles seem to be getting more technical, but at this point I'm fueled by an intermediate trail rating, and having made it through that puddle, they were of no concern to me. Perhaps, if I would have ran the trail the recommended way, I would have turned around sooner. Maybe I would have avoided the incredible risks I was about to take.
Bringing you guys to walk with this one with me, because this might be the spot to turn around if I'm going to do it. That should be fine. That's not what I'm worried about though. So getting up to here is going to be fine. Up to here is going to be fine. Then I think looking at it, that if I keep drivers here, passengers here, try and straighten this as much as possible, I could do it. But I'm actually thinking if I just keep it straight and I come keep the passenger side up on this rock. Problem is everything's so slick that I could slide off and be somewhere I don't want to be. None of this looks undoable, especially down this, because this looks doable. Yeah, I actually think, especially looking at it this direction, to kind of come down this way, and that'll be good. Show you guys this one too. I was thinking about doing GoPro and filming out the window, but I needed all of my attention. So, in case you're wondering, if you're coming down this, what looks to be the best line, and you can see where I still smacked frame, and probably rear diff again. But if you put your driver's tire right here, or at least this is what I did. Please tell me if you think of a better way. Or driver's tire right down here, and then your passengers come down this side. I wasn't making it over here. I thought about maybe trying coming up over here and keeping the passenger up high, and I was just not confident I could do that. So I'm sweating, guys, and I'm not sure if it's because I am wearing a fleece. It's 70 degrees outside, or because I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Maybe both.
Looking back up these obstacles, I am far from confident that I would have made it up them. I would have been screwed if there would have been similar obstacles coming up the other side. At the top of the first obstacle we walked down together, I was a quarter inch from putting my driver's door into the boulder at one point, and was never further than 2 inches until I was past it. My driver's tire refused to stay on top of the rock I needed it to, sliding off towards the rock scarred by other vehicles' bodywork and rock sliders. The red paint from some poor soul prior beckoned to the plain black of my bedside to join it. The most shameful part of this is that I set up the camera to capture all of the potential carnage, and for whatever reason, that footage disappeared to the same place as the footage from the Caney Overlook, so you can't even watch it happen.
Let's play everybody's favorite game. What's the damage? What's the bill? I don't think there's going to be anything on this side, admittedly. Because it seems like most of it was on the other side. Let me double check this trailing arm here. I don't see anything, but it's possible it just got coated back over. Now I know I hit this side a lot, so let's see. Yeah, there we go. Come on, look where I'm looking. Stupid camera. There we go. Helps if I point it. I guess that's what that there's for, so you don't punch a hole in your fuel tank. I feel like that's what got most of it, unfortunately. I don't love it. There's a spot. Oh, where are you? There that I see. All in all, it doesn't seem like I did too bad? Question mark. I could have been a lot worse. So I'm here at Shores Lake Dam. Weather's perfect. It's a little overcast. It could be a little sunnier, but it's perfect. Gonna stop, take some pictures. But holy crap, that trail. Wolf Ridge is what they called it. I don't know the actual Forest Service number. Don't travel alone, guys. I made some stupid decisions, and that's how I ended up there. And it all turned out okay. But I had no business being there. I have no business coming out of that as scotch-free as I did. Sure, I got some bumps and some scratches, but there's no body damage. There should have at least been some body damage. There could have been a lot worse frame damage. I've got skid plates. I don't have full protection. At any given point, I could have gotten high centered during the last more difficult bit anyways. And I would have been stuck without cell service, with nobody to come get me, nobody to call for help. And it could have been really bad. I can only really even chalk it up to years of being in the mountains with my dad and my grandpa, and a little bit of luck. So I feel like my luck tank is pretty low right now, and I've still got to make it to Kansas City today, hopefully by 7 for candlelight service for Christmas Eve. And we are going to need to be gone from Fayetteville, Arkansas by 3 o'clock, by 4 o'clock, I'm sorry, which means I need to get there by 3 o'clock so I can take care of my business and refuel and everything like that in order to make sure I'm there by 7. It is currently 11:56, just before noon. My luck tank's out for the day, guys. If nothing else, I'm just mentally exhausted. Let it be a lesson to never travel alone. Let it be a lesson that these Jeeps are more capable than you think they are. That was stock, full of random crap that I didn't even need. And just let it be a lesson. I learned a lot today. I hope you guys learned. I'm going to take some pictures and I'm going to get back on the road. I don't have the time or the energy or the skill in the tank, or the luck in the tank, both, to really do anything else that would be a little bit more technical. So that's what we're going to go with from here.
This is where my vagrancy becomes a different type. Instead of living out of the Jeep in the heart of the Ozarks, my trip to Jefferson City marks a change to staying wherever is cheapest that I can plug a laptop in and get an internet connection. I've been on the road for a week at this point, and I know I've got at least another week of living like this. One of the ways I've lost myself along the last year or so is getting out of touch with my photography. So I decided that while I'm in Jefferson City, I was going to make a conscious effort to use my cameras for something other than just video. I was going to walk around with my GoPro in my pocket, but that was going to be the extent of me taking videos. I never even ended up taking out my Olympus, even though I carried it around, either for video or for picture. The Capitol building is a great place to start with me getting back to the basics. I have been told on multiple occasions that the building is quote-unquote architecturally significant. Now, I'm not educated enough to speak on what would specifically make it significant, but it is one of the last state buildings designed and built in the American Renaissance style, and was built out of stone from Carthage, Missouri, as a grand statement of what democracy would look like in the 20th century. What I can say, though, is that the building is artistically beautiful. There is so much symbolism to see in the blend of Greek, Roman, and Christian ideologies that I am sure it would take books to unpack, and are well beyond the scope of my abilities in education. I walked around the Missouri State Capitol with my old Minolta and ended up filling a whole roll of 400 speed Fujifilm. There's just something about film photography that works to remind me of the joy and the connection I have with this art form. In the plaza overlooking the Missouri River to the rear of the Capitol building, two distinct works of art present themselves. The meaning of the first is most obvious. It's an obelisk with a relief of Livingston, Monroe, and Barbé Marbois, signing the Louisiana Purchase. Missouri owes its existence as we know it to the Louisiana Purchase, so it would make sense that there would be some form of art dedicated to this event. The second is more puzzling and required a bit more digging on my part. A beautiful fountain sits centered on that first monument, and it's called the Fountain of the Centaur. Interestingly, it features two ichthyocentaurs and childlike embodiments of sea urchins. I'm largely unfamiliar with these specific depictions of one-third human, one-third fish, one-third horse mythological beasts, but the best symbolism I can draw is the strength, harmony, and protection offered by the two ichthyocentaurs from the Greek myth of Aphrodite. Marine travel also holds strong roots in Missouri due to the trade importance of both the Missouri and the Mississippi rivers, so incorporating aquatic elements also makes sense on that front. This focus on photography and the concept of architectural photography specifically stuck with me as I left Jefferson City for St. Robert to check in with work after the holiday break. I still had a long time between checking out of one cheap hotel in the morning and checking into another for the afternoon, and a pretty short drive to get there and do it. Fortunately, there's a state park not too long out of the way that I've intended to visit that promised to fulfill both the function of killing time and providing photographic opportunities. I was off to see a castle. I had two specific goals in mind as I walked along the gorgeous boardwalk of the Ha-Ha-Tonka Spring Trail. One was to get a picture of the castle ruins in their majesty, high on the hill across the valley. The aerial photos that exist work well to illustrate the property, but I do not feel capture the grandeur of its location on the bluff and how regal its location actually is. I figured that today, with the beautiful lighting, mellow temperature, and the trees being barren of their leaves, would leave me with the best opportunity I was going to get. I found a couple spots that could, just maybe, fit the bill. I have no idea. For some reason, I didn't take any digital photos at either of them, so now I have to wait for a roll of Ektar 100 to develop. They looked promising through the viewfinder though. The blue-green water of the spring against the cliff face with the remains of a European-style estate is everything I imagined it would be. Now, all that remains to be seen is if I was able to capture that on camera. Continuing on down the stairs and walking along the spring was sure something else. The lighting accentuated the beautiful blues and greens against the stone that I can only describe as Ozarkian. Even away from the spring, the water is more blue, but it is offset by splotches of bright green duckweed. The second goal is to take an original photo of the ruins themselves, something creative, something aside from a wide angle or aerial picture of, here's the remains of a building. The challenge here is the same as with any other architecture or travel photo. It needs to be something different, but it also needs to be immediately recognizable. Something that suggests the overall vibe of where you are, but leaves something to the imagination. I personally really like how this turned out. You can see the building is burnt out. You can see the craftsmanship in the stone. The scars are still present where heat and soot marred the exterior. You know that this was once a grand building looking at the picture, but you also know that if it wasn't for the disaster, you wouldn't have this perspective of what makes this building special. For example, you wouldn't be able to see the far wall as well as you can see it in this picture if it wasn't for the fire. Plus, admittedly, I feel a little reassured by comments I've received from people that have been there too. Wait, is that Ha Ha Tonka? I almost didn't see the brown and green of the mallard sitting across the way, and I found myself in a position that, quite frankly, I don't love being in. The setting was picturesque, but I lacked the correct tools to capture it adequately. I love my Olympus setup. It's light, compact, relatively inexpensive, especially compared to the Sony ecosystem that I was previously in. Currently, my max focal length though is 100mm, so a full frame equivalent of 200mm. 99% of the time, my shooting is covered by my two lenses, giving me from 24mm to 200mm full frame equivalent without any gaps. Situations like this though, it's not enough. I can't shoot tight enough and I can't crop tight enough. The lens I want costs almost $7,500 used. The Hasselblad I want also costs about that new. While neither of them will fix the depth of field issue I have in these pictures of the ducks, both will fix the general softness produced by cropping a 20.4 megapixel sensor insofar in its own right. I think I know which one I would be better served by in the long run, but neither of them are viable options for now. This is all just dreaming. When I started my film photography project that I'm calling Transition, there's one thing that stood out to me. We are always transitioning from something, and we are always transitioning to something. This, for me, is the end of the beginning. I don't know if that means better. I don't know if that means worse. The only thing for certain is that I know it cannot stay the same. I've come to recognize the term vagrant differently in my life. A new definition carved from personal experience from the world around me. Vagrant, noun, is a person who, despite their circumstances, sees the beauty in taking life one day, one trail, one obstacle, and one night's rest at a time.
So we're going to really find out how well these mics cut out extra noise. It's pretty windy and we're between two sides of the highway right now. But I've been trying to figure out how I want to close this video out. The last stop that I had before having to come back to St. Robert proper was I stopped in St. Louis. University City to be exact. Got an Airbnb out there for a couple days because I needed to sit down and I needed to have access to internet and power for the computer to charge all my electronics and everything like that. Plus, it just pretty much wrapped up the whole Missouri trip. Now I can say I've been about as far east as you can go, about as far west as you can go. I've been not as far north as you can go, but pretty north, Columbia, Jefferson City, Kansas City, and then I've even been south. I've been down to the Ozarks in Arkansas. I've been even out to Illinois. First thing I'd like to say is St. Louis is quite an interesting city to me. But while I was there, I met some incredible people with some incredible stories. And there's certainly people I don't know that I would have met if it wasn't for that specific trip in St. Louis. I almost didn't go. Everything from the Airbnb host and his story was pretty cool. I met a traveling A&P, airframe and propulsion mechanic, works on aircraft for a living, had a good conversation about aircraft with him. I met a feller from Saudi Arabia who is utilizing his government's capacity to help fund education and things like that to come out here to the United States, and he is getting a degree at Washington University. I met a Persian gal who claims she was a lot older than she looked, but had a doctorate in computer science or computer engineering, something smart, something tech related. She was over here. She's a professor at Washington University. Del Mar has an interesting history in St. Louis. It is something called the Del Mar Divide, and everything south of St. Louis is pretty well one demographic and a little bit more affluent, and everything north is pretty much the opposite, about as opposite as you can get. You can feel that when you are driving through, especially if you're going north to south or south to north, one of the ways. But as I was driving through St. Louis, both to get out to the Lewis and Clark site and just to get back to St. Robert, there was a very stark, no pun intended, that's why they call it the Del Mar Divide, but there was a stark divide. And it brought home a couple things to me. The first one is that how many of people would have a story to tell if people both gave them the time to tell it, and if they gave the people talking to them time to ask. The other thing that really hit home is I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I know this is coming to an end. The paperwork's been pushed through for me to finally start getting paid. I'm back. I have a wonderful support group of friends and family that love me and have reached out, and I'm going to get through this. See the light at the end of the tunnel. It makes this whole experience a little more enjoyable. I'm not going to say I haven't been stressed, but it means that it was just a time and a season and it passed. But what I really want to hit home is that not everybody has that support. Not everybody has the opportunity to reach out to somebody. There's a lot of people in some really tough positions, whether of their own making or somebody else's making, I don't care. There are a lot of people in bad positions that, matter of fact, can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They don't see the way out. I'm not here to get into why that is, or if they could do something about it, or I'm not talking about that. But please take a moment to consider that everybody's going through something. There's a quote by an author that says something along the lines of, if everybody in the world were to take their problems and throw them in a pile, we'd all take ours back. Just be kind to people. Reach out to people. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. It might be the speck of starlight. It might be hidden behind the clouds. But it is there. And you just got to keep working for it. I know that's easier said than done. But I firmly believe that to be true through my life experiences. The story of Lewis and Clark has always been very important to me. It's something that motivated me growing up as a kid. I've always considered myself Western. The Lewis and Clark story is integral to Idaho and Montana and Washington and Oregon and a lot of the areas that I claim as home, and someday I'll be able to settle back down in that area. But one of their main opportunities, or charges when they set out on the expedition from Camp River du Bois, near the confluence of the Missouri and the Mississippi, best as we can tell, is they were to find the Northwest Passage. And they didn't do that. They failed. As far as that one specific charge goes, they failed. What they did do was open up a whole new territory. Some of my favorite country in the world, some of the most beautiful country in the world. And it all led me to where I am today. It set a culture of expedition and exploration and just rugged, true mountain men, a mentality that has been synonymous with the West, whether that's Western United States, Western Canada. Even at the time, St. Louis was about as far west as it got. And they didn't fail. As far as I'm concerned, everything that they've done and everything that has led from that, I can't describe it as failure. And it might not have looked the way that they imagined it when they first set off. But that stood out to me, and I want that to stand out to you guys too. If you guys are in a situation that you don't like, maybe you see the end, maybe you don't. Maybe you feel unappreciated, maybe you feel undervalued, maybe you feel like a failure, maybe you feel like you were destined for more and you're just not getting it. I just want to remind you that just because your successes don't look like how you imagined doesn't make them any less of successes.